ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So we pranam to all of you for the fourth day of our IKS-TKDL workshop on intellectual property, traditional knowledge, intellectual property, and people's rights. Today we are very delighted with us, ma'am. So as she was with us yesterday, so madam and sir also, senior scientist, Mr. Kumar sir, and Madam is the principal scientist at TKDL unit. So today, Madam will talk about the ethical aspect of traditional knowledge, how we can work, how we can handle with traditional knowledge ethically. That's the important area which we will know from Madam. So, Pranam Madam, over to you. Please start your session. We are very enthusiastic.
Thank you, Piyush ji. I hope I'm audible to all.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just share my presentation.
Yes, please. Yes,
Is that
it's
visible?
visible. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, a very good afternoon to all. Namaste. I hope you all had a great day today. We will sort of continue from where we left off yesterday. We spoke about traditional knowledge, defensive and positive aspects of protecting traditional knowledge. What are the provisions that are currently available in the law? What is not available in the law? And we also saw what an exemplary, that is database, the TKDL is, as a documented prior art database, which is an example of defensive protection of traditional knowledge. Okay. So we also saw some other things yesterday, and certain like ideas or certain terminologies also were introduced yesterday, like prior informed consent. So all those things we would understand more in detail today, and we will talk about all those things. When we say ethical aspects of handling and working with traditional knowledge, it is actually why I'm talking about ethical aspects is, as I mentioned yesterday, there is no legal provision, there are no laws, there are no laid down procedures to handle TK or to protect TK. So when we come to working and handling with TK, all we have to deal with is the ethical aspect. That is what should and what should not be done when you work with TK. Okay. So we'll talk about those things. A lot of researchers in India are working with traditional knowledge. So it's important for us to be aware of these things so that when we do the work related to TK, we do it right. Okay. So while starting, I'll start with what is the scope of the traditional knowledge that we are talking about in the current topic for today, in the current context. Okay. Here we are talking about undisclosed knowledge. The knowledge that we spoke about in TKDL, which is present, I told you it is all public domain information, information that is already there in text, which we have converted into a certain format and language and put it in the TKDL database. Okay. So when you talk about handling in that case, it is already, subject matter of published information. So the published information already has a sort of protection, which is you all know about is copyright protection. So in that sense, that TK is protected because it's in public domain. But when you talk about other kinds of information, especially undisclosed knowledge, knowledge which is not known to all, which is contained in a particular community, which is maybe codified, not codified. It could also be in the form of some fixed format, but it is not available in general to all. So in that form it is undisclosed. This could be oral tribal folk knowledge, which is present in individuals, families, and communities, as we spoke about yesterday, or they could also be manuscripts. See, manuscripts, I told you, are in languages which are not understood by us today. That could also be in the possession of families, communities, or it could be in repositories like museums, it could be in libraries. And in that form also, they are undisclosed because they are not open to public. They are not available in public domain. Okay. So keeping in mind that we are going to discuss about this types of traditional knowledge, let us understand different terminologies that are used in this context. Okay. Who are the stakeholders when we talk about traditional knowledge? Traditional knowledge has been created at some point of time. I told you it is a living knowledge. It is not a knowledge which has been created thousands of years ago and has become static. Okay, it could be that also could be the case, but most often than not, it is a living knowledge that is continuously, dynamically evolving over a period of time as per the understanding of people who are practicing that knowledge and adapting to the various changes that are happening over a period of time. Okay, so you can have creators, you can have practitioners. Who are practitioners? Practitioners may or may not be owners. They simply practice that particular knowledge. For instance, you can think of artisans who weave certain carpets, or you can think of healers who have got who form a part of the committee, though they may not be creators, they may not be owners, but they do practice that form of medicine. There could be owners, owners in the sense the information has been held in the family over a period of time, in the group over a period of time, in the community over a period of time, so they become owners. Custodians could be those who have got the information from someone, but currently they are the ones who have the control of that particular information. This could even mean authorities, state authorities, national authorities, and so on and so forth. Okay. Then there may be intermediaries also involved. Who are intermediaries? Intermediaries are someone who say you are a researcher and there is a knowledge holding community. You want to reach them, but you can't reach them. There is often a lot of communication problems or accessibility problems. So there are people who will get you in touch with them, or will connect you with them, or will tell those people what you want, or tell you what they want. Such kind of people are also very important in the the web of the traditional knowledge ecosystem that we are talking about. Okay, so they are also stakeholders. Then next thing is, what are the national or international provisions in this context? I'm giving you a background in the beginning. Only if you understand the background, then you will understand when I talk about ethical handling, why we are talking about ethical handling, and what are the existing, in the context of what is available. Okay, so when you talk about international provisions, there is something called the Convention on Biological Diversity. Okay, so you can go and have a look at this. India is a signatory. As for it's basically for conservation of biological diversity and sustainable use of its components. The first three bullets that I have cited are actually the objectives of the convention. Okay, and the third thing is important here. It talks about fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of utilization of genetic resources. Okay, so why in this context we are talking about traditional knowledge, as we understand our process, our products, our way of life, our so many things, rituals, practices, all these things come under traditional knowledge. When you talk about utilization of genetic resources, that are also a form of traditional knowledge. Okay, so when you talk about fair and equitable benefit sharing over here, it also talks about appropriate access to those genetic resources. The other more important convention, which also is a part of the CBD, is the Nagoya Protocol. It talks about prior informed consent. We heard about prior informed consent yesterday. I will give you a lot more details today. It means approval of the community or the indigenous group which holds that particular knowledge. So this is also important in the context of genetic resources and traditional knowledge. The third thing is the national provision, also which we discussed yesterday, that is the Biological Diversity Act. Okay, this has been recently amended, so it is 2023 now. The rules have also been issued for the Act as late as a couple of months ago. It will be implemented soon. So In the Biological Diversity Act, it talks about creation of constitution of a National Biodiversity Authority, then a State Biodiversity Board, and then a Biodiversity Management Committee at the village or taluk or the panchayat level, and who will connect with the local people, and whenever there is any use or of biological resources or the associated traditional knowledge, they will be the mediators between the local community and the person who wants to use it. Okay. The BMC is also mandated to prepare the People's Biodiversity Register, which again we saw yesterday. They do this in consultation with local people. Okay. Also, the Act defines the quantum of benefit that is to be shared with the people who are owners of the traditional knowledge or the genetic resources. Okay, so these are on mutually agreed terms between the authority and the local bodies and the benefit claimers. By benefit claimers, who are the benefit claimers? They could be any of the stakeholders that we saw earlier. That is the practitioners, it could be the creator, it could be the holder, it could be a contributor, any one of those. Okay, they could all fall under the realm of a benefit claimer. So the quantum of who contributes what, how do they contribute, all those things are also important. They're very complex issues, but there is a level of discussion in the National Biodiversity, in the Biological Diversity Act. Okay. Just a reminder of what we also spoke about yesterday, that is the section 3P, wherein we know that traditional knowledge in effect cannot be patented. Okay. But there is another thing in our act, okay, which is a disclosure requirement. What it says, this is in support of the knowledge holders or the benefit claimers. It says that in case you're using any biological material, then you will have to disclose the geographical origin of the biological material used in the invention. And this has to be part of your patent application. It is it is a part of the forms that you submit along with the patent application. Okay. So any incorrect or wrongful disclosure of any such information is a ground for not only pre-grant opposition, also for post-grant opposition, and also for revocation. Okay. So in case you do not disclose it correctly, or you disclose it incorrectly, or fail to disclose it, then somebody could file this as a ground and get your patent revoked even after it is granted. Okay. Now, what are the access and benefit sharing provisions in the Biological Diversity Act? See, as researchers who are working on traditional knowledge, and also as people who are potentially likely to use traditional knowledge for any part of their work, or genetic resources for any part of their work, must understand these provisions, because you can't say I'm ignorant of the law, so I did not follow the law. The law says that you can't be ignorant. You have to know the law that is there associated with the things that you handle. Okay. So here you are having provisions in the Biological Diversity Act, which says that in case you're using any biological material or associated traditional knowledge, you either have to take a prior approval, or there is prior registration. Okay, there are some differences in the act when it talks about like local vets, hakims. They need not actually take permission from the authority. But in case there are Indian companies, they have to register. In case they are foreign companies or foreign participants in a particular group, then prior approval is required. Okay. So before you obtain the biological resource or associated knowledge, you need to take permission. When you transfer results of the research relating to the biological resource, again you'll have to take permission, or you'll have to give the registration. If you are going to apply for intellectual property right outside India based on the biological resource, then also you will have to take permission. So, okay. So there are particular forms. There is also an agreement which you will have to sign with the National Biodiversity Authority, and these are all mandatory procedures, and this you will have to disclose when you are doing the patent application in case you are applying for IPR. Okay. So what does the NBA do? The NBA helps in equitable sharing of benefit between the applicant, the local bodies, and the benefit claimers. Okay, there is a formula. There is one, there is a regulation for access and benefit sharing. This, if you go to the site of the National Biodiversity Authority, you can get these regulations which are published. According to this, there is a range, like say between 0.1 to 0.5% you will have to give when you are taking a particular genetic resource or the biological resource. In case you are applying for IPR and getting commercial benefit out of it, again there is a something like 1 to 5% you will have to share as benefit. Then there is also the formula as to what will happen to the benefit which you have shared. So in case it is monetary, 5% goes to the NBA, of which some will be shared with the State Biodiversity Board, and then remaining 95% will go to the biodiversity management committees and the benefit claimers. Okay, so it entirely will go to them for their benefit for whatever use that is deemed benefit, that is deemed correct to be applied among the communities or among the knowledge holders. Okay, but the act also says you can either give monetary or non-monetary benefits. Non-monetary would mean what? Non-monetary would mean any other sort of things where you create infrastructure for them, some schools for them, or you actually share some of the scientific knowledge and many of the other things. So such things are also possible under Biodiversity Act. So you either give monetary benefits or you give the non-monetary benefits. Even putting them as co-authors in a publication will be a form of non-monetary benefit. Okay, and also as co-applicants or inventors in a patent application. That would, of course, have some monetary benefit because in case it goes into commercialization, they will get monetary benefit out of it. All the formulae are decided on case-to-case basis. Okay. Now, where do we come into picture? That is as the TKD. In the national IPR policy in 2016, there was one thing, besides many other things they spoke about in terms of traditional knowledge. It also says that TKDL should take the effort to document oral traditional knowledge, taking care to see that the integrity of the said knowledge is preserved and traditional ways of the life of communities are not compromised. See, we spoke about certain things yesterday when we talked about the why TK should be protected. In that, we also spoke about livelihoods of the knowledge holders, which is very important because the traditional knowledge is directly, proportional to the monetary benefits or the economic position of those people. Okay, so in case in some way that is affected, it is likely to affect their living lifestyle and everything that they have as an economic, advantage in society. Okay. So now we will talk about when you handle oral traditional knowledge, what are the concerns? For only when you know what are the concerns, you will know what you have to do in order to overcome those. Okay. So in the following part of the presentation, I will also talk about what all we should do when we are handling TK, so that these things, the traditional knowledge holders or their rights are not adversely affected. All right. So, are there any questions, Piyushji? Is there anything that anybody wants to know so far, or shall we continue?
Ma'am, we can continue now. There is no question related to the topic right now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll continue. So when you talk about handling of oral TK, there are several concerns we have. Most importantly, that there is no formal legal framework to protect oral TK. Okay. Now there is one more thing here. I spoke about the Biological Diversity Act, which has certain provisions which talks about access and benefit sharing. Okay, although not directly protecting oral traditional knowledge, it has certain provisions like maintaining a people's biodiversity register. But when you talk about TK, which is not related to biological resources, okay, in such a case, then what happens? There is no act which is actually supporting that kind of information, right? So we'll have to keep in mind that in general, there is a lack of legal protection and there is a lack of legal provisions to protect rights of the traditional knowledge holders. Okay. So similarly, there is no uniform SOP for recording TK. There is no standard prior informed consent format or procedure. So people who collected randomly without understanding how they should be doing the work. So we have documentation by several entities. We all know, and many of you may also be involved in this kind of work. Okay. So we have commercial entities, we have universities, we have several government departments, also individuals who are collecting such knowledge from the knowledge holders, from tribal communities, from people who are practicing this knowledge, and then just putting it over there so that, uh, and using it in any manner that they understand fit. Okay. And that may be with the consent or with the understanding of the holder or not. Okay. Then, when you talk about indifference to the empowerment of knowledge holders and sustained livelihood, what happens? You take the information and you have either done R&D with it or you have gone ahead and published it, but you have not thought about the potential for gain that or monetary or otherwise, which that particular knowledge could have given the knowledge holder. So either you are unaware about it or you are not bothered. Okay. So in that sense, you're doing a disservice to those people. So the low awareness of CIC and AVS norms leads to exploitation and misappropriation. Okay, this low awareness is in both cases. It could be low awareness on the part of the person who is collecting and recording the information, or it could be on the part of the person who's sharing the information. Okay, then you publish articles without due acknowledgement. Primary thing is the even when you talk about ethical publishing, not just TK, any sort of article, or when you record some information or produce some information from some other article, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to attribute that particular this to the citation or reference or the person who has given that, written that information, say from another article or journal or so on and so forth. Similarly, when you are taking TK from someone, then publishing it or utilizing it, there you are not acknowledging. That's again a problem. Sharing and dissemination of without considering whether it is potentially IPR. I told you yesterday, although traditional knowledge is non-patentable subject matter, okay, that is in effect, that is the actual TK itself. But where it is perhaps still in a closed environment, or it is not in public domain, or it is not available as a prior art, it could still be have the potential for intellectual property rights. So you'll have to consider whether that is possible. I'm not speaking only in terms of patent. It could also be in terms of designs, as we saw. It could be copyrights. It could be many other things. Okay. Then you have R&D. You do further R&D. You validate. I told you, validation is an important component of traditional knowledge. Why? We as a scientifically educated community or a people, we somehow tend not to believe in things which have been handed over. So we want always experiments. We want to know if this is actually working. We want to know if there are any published results. So when you're doing research, when you're validating such things or commercially utilizing, there is no attribution, no benefit going back to the knowledge holder or the provider. So these are all concern areas, and I'll give you some idea as to how you can overcome this and what are the things that you must keep in mind. Okay. So risk, you must remember, is you are jeopardizing the rights of knowledge holders by bringing unpublished knowledge into public domain. Okay, you are causing potential loss of livelihood, and you're for giving further ground for misappropriation and biopiracy. Always while working and handling TK, remember these three things, and you should always work to avoid these three things from happening. Okay. So now we'll come to access and documentation. Now, all of you who are working with, or even people who are not currently working with TK, you will all know that there are ways in some manner you are actually using traditional knowledge. Okay. So when you are going to access or when you're going to document TK, remember the following points. First of all, I told you yesterday that when um, you talk about traditional knowledge, it is a holistic information. It is not just in black and white. It is not just the 2D information that is being depicted. It is also the spiritual, the customary, the traditional connotation linked with their life, which is also important part of the traditional knowledge. So when you are accessing and documenting, remember to respect the privacy, the freedom, the moral rights, and the right to sustainable livelihood of the knowledge holders. Okay. So keep all those things in mind, that it is a holistic thing and you'll have to respect all of it. Ensure participatory consultative process. Now, why participatory consultative? I told you they're always or mostly in groups, okay? And also when we spoke about the authorship or ownership yesterday, we understand that it is kind of diffuse. It is not always easy to pinpoint who is the actual owner, okay? So when that is the case, Piyushji, is there something that you want to convey?
Yes, one question. So, what should a researcher do? Question mark. If one cannot write, if one cannot write it as a medium to disseminate their knowledge. See, if we have a written record about their oral tradition, is not it protected their knowledge, which can get lost due to modernization?
I agree. I agree. The primary thing of documentation yesterday, when we spoke about why we are documenting, also in a way, one aspect is the preservation. See, over a period of time, we know as languages disappear, as people disappear, the knowledge also disappears. So, the one primary important work is having that knowledge preserved in some form so that it is for the benefit of future society. But here we have to remember that writing down has to be in consultation with the group of the knowledge holder. Okay. So if that person is not comfortable, or if that person doesn't want you to make it, public, or in whatever form they are agreeable with, only in such a format. So publishing, unless that person is agreeable to you for publishing, because once you publish, it becomes public domain information. It is no longer that person's knowledge. So unless that person wants you to publish, you mustn't publish, is what I'm trying to say, is that ethical handling includes the express consent of the person who is sharing that information with you. They may share, but they may not want you to publish. So respect that. Okay. Then build trust with the knowledge holder. See, often people who collect information or handle information tell us that they don't want to share the information with us. Okay. So I pose a counter question. Why would they want to share it with you? Okay. It is their knowledge. They have, got it from generation to generation. They have added their own, insights to it, and it has become an important part of their life. So why would they want to share it with you? Okay. So you will have to make them understand by sharing what are the advantages. Also, at the same time, you will have to talk about the disadvantages. So unless they completely understand by sharing what are the gains, they may not want to share it with you. And also, it is often found that when you share with people, they usually go ahead and publish or whatever. They have had bad experiences. Okay. So unless you are able to convince them that it is a good intention that you are doing this work, they may not want to share some information with you. Okay. So here there should be consensus, and you should have complete this agreement on how you're going to record the information. And also, when there are communities, you will have to take collective views. Do not segregate on the basis of gender. Do not segregate on the basis of the, maybe a class, a strata. Not that way. You will have to take them in an inclusive manner. Only then the information that you're gathering will be done in the right manner. Okay. And also, when you take collective views, you see for variation and duplication. The same information could be done by different people in different manners, or different people may be doing the same thing. Okay. So unless you take collective views, you won't know who are the people who are involved in that particular or who are stakeholders in that particular traditional knowledge. Okay. And when you're recording such information, you should record as completely as possible, because often you would go to remote places, you would go to different places. You can't go back every time to that just to check, no, I missed this point. I need to go back and ask them again, and I need to rectify the data. It is not even easy. What if that person who you found maybe some years ago is not there any longer? So you may not be able to corroborate the data. So take comprehensive information, the geographical location, profile, even, to go back as a researcher to see whether the data is correct or no. All those things have to be recorded right. Profile, ecological, also over a period of time, if there are changes, even that you will be able to record. That is one of the things that they do in the People's Biodiversity Register. They update it. So when they update data, this plant was covering so many acres in 1980. Today, it is covering so many acres. That is how they know that the thing is diminishing, or there is ecological damage, or there is due to climatic change, certain things have happened. All those kind of things also can be recorded. They record the apprehensions and challenges expressed by the knowledge holders. You need to understand that. Only then you would be able to convince them, or you would be able to use the information in the right manner. Okay, and always record it in preferably audio video mode. So what happens is when you write it, you may not make mistakes. You may make mistakes, but when you record it, so even if it's in a different language or if it's in something else, you know you've recorded it correctly. So, by looking at it again, you will know that information can be reproduced. Okay. The another aspect of traditional knowledge is, first I told about access and documentation. The next aspect we are discussing is research and development. Most often, what do you collect that information for? Publication is one thing, but there is also the aspect of R&D. Okay. So when you do R&D, take the information with consent, then plan the activities. While planning the activities, also take their views. Okay, it will be a good way because they have used that particular product or the particular process over a period of time. They may know a lot of pros and cons which you may not know by just looking at the data that they have given you. Okay, then if it is say a health thing that you're taking up, a health project, you could prioritize unaddressed problems of the community. That would be a good way of giving back. In the sense, if you're taking some plant knowledge, which you have some healing and you're going to produce a medicine out of it, suppose there are some other things that, they are plagued by, which as a particular society in that particular place or group, they are always, suffering from a certain condition, then you could look at those aspects as an R&D company or a person who has the wherewithal to do R&D in that area. You could, actually address those things so that sort of gives back to the community. Then, most importantly, avoid conflict with traditions and beliefs, because any traditional knowledge is associated with a lot of other components. So if you're going to do something which directly says, oh, what you have been believing for all these years is all rubbish, okay, you can't do that because it is something which is ingrained in their traditions and customs. Okay, so when such things happen or when there are contradictory results, discuss it with them, understand whether they are willing even at this point of time for you to do R&D or proceed with the R&D. Okay, then include cooperation and partnership with all the knowledge holders. They will contribute positively to the work that you do. When you publish research publications, one way is to add them as co-authors, but you can also share the information with them in the language that they understand. Okay, that's also a way of giving back. And also sign material transfer agreements where accessing biological resources are involved. Okay, and all extant laws and procedures should be followed. So what extant laws and procedures I'm talking about? One is I told you already, we have the Biological Diversity Act. We may have those other Forest Rights Acts. We have many other things. So always be within the limits of the boundaries of the act. Don't go beyond that. Then you will be liable to legal, or penal provisions. Then, if commercialized, then ensure that benefits are shared. Monetary, non-monetary, of course, it is governed by the Biological Diversity Act, but you will have to take care of that. When I'm talking about dissemination of information, like we spoke about just now, dissemination information, that is writing down or publishing in some format, make it mandatory for prior informed consent along with manuscript submission. This is not done most often. So when you do that, you know that the person has taken the necessary permission from the people to share the information. So if the journal which takes the manuscript says that, no, you have taken this information, it is TK, why don't you also submit the PIC? Okay, in a way that makes it, you're sure that the manuscript, whoever is submitting the manuscript has also taken permission from the TK holder. Then do not publish secret or confidential information because it has potential for IP protection. So think about all those things. Decide that it does not have value, only then go in the context of IP protection, and then only go for publication. Okay, because once published, you can't protect it with IP. Then include all these knowledge holders as co-authors. That is one good way, that is one ethical way of doing the work that you do. And as a consultative process is always important, okay? Always discuss it with them and respect moral rights. What do I mean by moral rights? You all understand in the context of copyright, what is moral right? Moral right is when you take information from somebody and you publish it, do not derogate it in any way, do not twist it in any way, do not change it in any way. So the essence and integrity of that information has to be maintained. In that way, you're respecting the moral rights of the knowledge holder. The other thing is awareness and education. One is example is what we are doing today. I'm talking to so many people about the ethical handling of traditional knowledge. Now you are all empowered and you are all now enlightened about this subject matter. You're all aware. So you will go and spread the message. You will tell people, yeah, this is to be done this way, and these are the ways of handling the traditional knowledge information. So we are spreading awareness. Then in like we are doing now is teaching modules or capacity building workshops. Then there are also, you include these things in educational courses, okay? So in that way, from a younger age, you will start learning about all these things and you will start respecting these things in the, local context as well as in the national context. Then we have due appreciation for and award for knowledge holders and providers. We know a lot of these traditional knowledge holders recently have been awarded the Padma Awards, okay? And a lot of them, and in that manner, many of us have come to know about the achievements of these people, okay? They are traditional healers, they are traditional practices, they have done so much for the environment. Probably we would not have known if they were not recognized at the national level through the Padma Award. And so now we know that even these people at the grassroots level, the kind of enormous amount of work they are doing for society. Okay. I'll give some brief idea about what is prior informed consent, how to go about recording prior informed consent so that you know when you are recording knowledge. Okay. So by prior informed consent, as I mentioned yesterday also, what we mean is that it is written and an authorization permission to record or to disseminate or add value, use it anything, that information for further R&D or so on and so forth. So what you're doing is you're taking it from the traditional tribal folk community, and then you may be creating improvements or derivative innovation, and you are taking the permission. So this has to be in recorded written form. Okay. Suppose they are not literate, you can take it in the video form. Suppose there are other ways you can take their thumb impression and so on and so forth, but a video recorded form would be an ideal way of also recording prior informed consent. Okay. So the person who is documenting will have to tell the owner of the knowledge about the pros and cons of collecting that information, of disseminating of the information, of utilization of the information, what will happen to it, what they are going to use it for, and is the knowledge holder agreeable to it being put for that use. Okay. So what all you will record here, you will record in general the name of the person, knowledge holder, all details of the knowledge holder. Okay. All the community people, if there is any community leader, all those people you will take into consideration. Then you will record, are they willing to share or no? Yes or no. So are they willing to share part knowledge or full knowledge? Do they want to, allow it to go into public domain, or they want you to record it but keep it secret? All these things have to be understood. So you have the declaration by the knowledge holder, declaration by the recording organization. You can also give them examples of ABS. If you go to the National Biodiversity Authority, you'll find examples over there. So you can tell them what happens. I'll also show you some examples. So that sort of gives them an idea that if I am sharing the information, what can happen to the information. Okay. So the explanatory note for the knowledge holders can also contain the following. Okay. So you have it is a voluntary consent. You're not forcing anybody. They understand, they want to give, they will give you. Okay. They also have to understand that any such consent which is given can be retracted later. Again, you will have to respect that. Okay. Then this record of whatever you are taking, you will have to share it with those people also. Okay. In the form of in the language that they understand, or if it's in a recorded form, in a video form, you give it that to them also. Then Explain to them what are the pros and cons of full or partial disclosure. Also, at times what happens is there are benefits if it is commercially produced, and there may be times when there are no commercial benefits. So they have to understand that it does not always result in commercial benefits. Then, even if you value add, you or do further validation, including publications, you will acknowledge them. Now, in this case, what happens? There are various views. The people who are collecting often feel that I have gone and done things beyond what was already known. Then why should I continue to acknowledge those people? Okay, there are two schools of thought. But the other school of thought says that primarily, if that information did not exist at all, how would you have gone about even building on that? So, to acknowledge those primary knowledge holders is always important. Okay. Now, few challenges in implementing the prior informed consent. Often it is very difficult to identify a community leader or a competent person who would sign it. See, when it is with individuals, it is easy. But when the knowledge becomes diffuse, then who is the person whose prior informed consent is valid? That's one question. Then, when there is dispute among the community members, knowledge holders, or knowledge practitioners, there will again be a problem, okay, in implementing PIC. Then can be different communities who claim benefit. Then they may not sign. Like I saw a post just now, somebody said that if you go to them with a form, they would never, share the information with us. Yes, that is a level of mistrust they have. So if you want to make them sign and want them to share the information with you, there are a lot of explanation that you will have to do. Only then you can gain their trust and make them sign the paper or record a PIC. Okay. Then once you have commercialization becoming imminent, it's like a legal thing. So where you see that there is going to be some profit, you'll find new, benefit claimers cropping up. So again, then they will say, "Humse to you have not taken any PIC." Then also the question of retraction of PIC. What happens if someone gives PIC, you moved along over a period of time, and then that person says, "No, I no longer want to share the information. I want to retract it." Okay, that is one of the challenges. So for responsible documentation of TK and utilization, there are three things you have to remember: prior informed consent, acknowledgement, and access and benefit sharing. Always keep all these three things in mind when you're working with traditional knowledge. Okay. Some examples I have put on the side. The National Innovation Foundation that I spoke to you about, they actually work with grassroots innovators, and these remedies they took from the people who were, actually using it on their own cattle and their own this. They used it for the farm animals. They converted them into products, and those products are on sale today, and benefits go back to that community. Okay. Similarly, there are some examples. If you go to the National Biodiversity Authority, you see examples. This is one example where a researcher has taken some information from the Siddhi community in Gujarat to do PhD work, but said that whatever results that come out of the, should be given to the tribal population and should be used for the benefit of the tribal population. Okay. Then there is this other example where they have taken glycyrrhizide glabra. So that is use of a biological resource by a multinational company, and they have paid upfront fee for the biological resource. This is another example of Hindustan Lever where they have used plants like this, and they have used it in FMCG products. And they also paid the upfront fee to the NBA, which was given back to the knowledge holders or the people who are taking care of the biodiversity. Okay. So what are the complexities that you can face in benefit sharing? Okay. First and foremost, the knowledge of the practice does not pertain to utilization of bioresources. Then what do you do in that case? We don't have any law. The only law that we have is for biological resources. Then if the knowledge is distinct, but there are no immediate takers, so there is no commercialization, there is no monetary value. So in such cases, then actually there is no benefit sharing arising out of the particular knowledge sharing. Then there is an ethical conundrum which comes. Suppose the knowledge is distinct, it is commercially viable, but it is associated with depleting natural resources. What should be foremost in our minds? To maintain our ecosystem, to conserve the ecosystem because for a future generation. So in that case, a balance is required. Then you'll have to understand how will you put to good use that knowledge sharing. Then sometimes the knowledge providers will impede percolation of benefits to the knowledge holders or producers. They may be distinct and different. Similarly, it can happen with practitioners also. There can be some internal thing, the ones who practice and the ones who actually hold or conserve or the owners, they may be all different. Then there may be several benefit claimers, including intermediaries who facilitate the access. Then in that case, what do you do? Then fixing contribution. So there are different players. So there are so many people. How much do you give to each person? That is maybe sometimes obscure. Then the ownership of the resource and the knowledge. So there is one genetic resource, there is one associated traditional knowledge, but the ownership is not the same. There and not even you cannot even integrate the two together. Then what do you do? Then how do you decide contribution? Okay. So for understanding all these things, there are several ways. There, if you go to international, there are several examples. People have studied this and understood, and there are ways in which these things have been done. So I'll give you some examples of sites where you can go and understand in the larger context how the PIC or ABS is implemented. But some general pointers to good practices. You will have to create institutional structures for PIC and ABS. Then you could have as an important thing that you should be able to conserve ecosystems and natural habitats. And all the players should be able to get the benefit. Okay, so the income generated should be shared amongst all. Then one important thing is have PIC as a mandatory thing before you publish papers. Okay, so it should be at the stage of review. The um, journal editor should ask you for the PIC. That's one way. Some examples I have given. Since the presentation will be shared with you, I'm not explaining this. This is self-explanatory. Global best practices, I said. So you can go to these sites. You can go and have a look. There are a lot of information there which talks about code of ethics, charters, how to pursue R&D on indigenous knowledge. A lot of the things that I have taken in this presentation are also from some of these things. So you will find a huge amount of information, and maybe that will clarify a lot of things when you're working with traditional knowledge. Also, if you're part of an institution, I know many of you have come from educational institutions, you all can explore the possibility of constituting a TK ethics committee like we do for ethics for animal studies or experimental studies based on animals or clinical studies. You have ethics committees like that. You can have traditional knowledge ethics committee for handling all these above matters. That would be a good way of doing this work. So through all this, what do we want to achieve? Just a few, I'm just reiterating and highlighting. So through ethical handling of knowledge, we are going to focus on prior informed consent, sharing the recorded knowledge with the knowledge givers, sustaining the livelihood, fair equitable sharing of benefits. Another thing is conservation of habitats, because if you're not conserving the habitat and if you're going to go on using the biological resource, you're just going to destroy the ecosystem. And okay, it will not be there for future generations, and you're not going to be able to use it any longer. And by doing all this, you could be creating the models for sharing the knowledge to third parties. Okay, so those models will be very helpful for working with traditional knowledge. So in this context, what Traditional Knowledge Digital Library has also done as a unit, we have created a guidance document for handling and working with traditional knowledge. This is not a public document as yet. What we have done is put it through the necessary approvals within CSIR. But once those approvals are received, we may have, share it with different AICT institutions or UGC institutions so that the same thing could be implemented at their level also. So thank you for listening to me patiently. Thank you, and I'll stop my presentation now.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank
you
you
so
for
much.
your informative lecture. So, and now we can just quickly complete our assessment, then we will come back to our question and answer session. Astu? So I'm sharing the assessment link in the chat box. Please take 10 minutes and complete the assessment quickly. It's 4:22. So we'll complete 10 minutes 32. 432. 2 minutes left. Please submit your assessment. 2 minutes left. Time up. So I hope everybody has submitted. So we request all of you, please raise your digital hand and ask your question. I will unmute you. In between, ma'am, we can take from a written questions. So here, from Anchal ji, how can researchers ethically and methodologically use secondary data from oral knowledge shared by tribal communities on public platforms like YouTube, etc., for academic research, ensuring proper acknowledgement, consent, and cultural sensitivity? Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned first of all that it is secondary from a secondary source. So if I understand correctly, if it is on a digital platform, it is already there in public domain.
Yes.
So there you will have to understand how that has been shared. If you notice, even photographs or other things in what is available in digital platforms are often copyrighted. Similarly, you will have to see in what manner that has been shared. So if it has some, licenses through it which has been shared, for instance, Creative Commons license, or it has been shared through saying that this is copyrighted information, you'll have to follow the norms. Okay. So if it is copyrighted, you obviously, to use it, you will have to take permission of the person who has published it. And if it is Creative Commons, you will see that there are different licenses under Creative Commons, and you can read the provisions of the license. Many of the times in Creative Commons, if it is shared, then it would mean that you can use it with due attribution. Okay. Now the question of cultural sensitivity. Cultural sensitivity is a very difficult thing because if you talk about traditional culture, it is of that particular community. Okay. Unless you belong to that community, you are never fully aware of it. Okay. So only to the extent possible as an outsider, you can be sensitive to it. So with due understanding of the subject matter, as long as you deal with it in a manner that is, respectful and mindful of that it has that cultural sensitivity, or it is traditionally important or sacred to that community, I think that would be good enough when you are ethically handling that information. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Next, what are the ethical considerations while dealing with folklore?
Okay. So folklore is again one form of traditional cultural expressions or the traditional knowledge that we spoke about. So in that context, it comes under the kind of knowledge that we are talking about. So folklore could mean a lot of things. So folklore, if you're talking about, say, a simple example, there is some storytelling format or something, some format in which people are expressing things. So that all the things that I told you, so that applies to that also. So if you're going to share that information, are you taking PIC? So what do you want to do with that? Do you want to publish it? Do you want to develop it? Do you want to convert it into some other format? Do you want to gain commercial benefit out of it? Say, many of these things, if you notice, in many of our movies and also in many of the movie songs, they have actually used traditional beats and traditional even lyrics and also beats and music, okay, often without attribution to that community. Many of them we have our own examples from commercially benefited, people have commercially benefited. So in that sense, all the things that I mentioned, that you should take PIC, that you should take their permission and do and use it as per their permissions and authorization, that is important. Okay, so folklore also fits in that.
Yes. How can traditional knowledge be protected from unauthorized commercialization?
One way of unauthorized commercialization, traditional knowledge is a very broad term. So one way is what I told, in some way bring it into public domain, or you're putting it in the form of something where people do know that it already exists. So in that way it is protected. That is a form of defensive protection. So commercial benefits, can be in many ways. One is taking an IP and then creating a product out of it. But there are other ways, like where IP is not involved, and this happens especially in traditional handicrafts, traditional textiles, and all those things. People go to these artisans. There is even the patterns that people make in traditional garments. They all have a story. So all those things are with their cultural beliefs, and with they have certain traditions because of which such motifs are made. People go, like big designers go to them, talk to them, and then reproduce them, and then sell it as their own creation. So what happens in this case? This is the reason why the communities or the tribal communities or the artisans are afraid to share their knowledge, because such things are happen rampantly. So this is why there should be a provision for protection of traditional knowledge. But since it is not there, this can be done in the more general sense by, see, I don't say there is any legal recourse to this, because there is no legal protection. But yes, you can, like the way nowadays social media is there and so many other things are there, at least you could expose such things which are happening.
Yes. From the audience, we can say, Dr. Shankarji,
Yeah.
are you
Uh,
there?
yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Good evening, ma'am. And it was very informative talk since 2 days. Thank you for that. Mine is little from a broader perspective. Why not this traditional knowledge is included in our Indian education system, at least the basic one, so that right from the maybe like primary or high school, they learn that as a subject like mathematics, science, or so. Even at this level, as a faculty, we are learning. So it will be very informative, when it is inculcated at root level.
So it's a very good thought, actually, and I suppose that thought has come to others also. which is why IKS, through IKS and the Ministry of Education, is now introducing this as a component. Okay. But what you're saying is at a much lower level, maybe in schools. And I think that attempt is also being made, because it is some aspects of IKS are being introduced in all aspects of the education. Am I right, Piyushji? Even at school
Yes, yes,
level?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. We are working with NCERT also. So through syllabus, it's coming. So I think in next year it will come more. So it's already implemented in some degree. So it's going on. We are trying our best. It will take time.
So
Thank you.
Shankarji,
Thank you.
the thing is already set in motion, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Then Namtuji.
Yeah, am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am. So
Good
my
evening.
question is, at the very first day, Professor Murthy shared the flow like Vrishti Parampara and Lokika Prasad. So my question is, if I'm applying some sort of traditional knowledge in to solve some problem, for example, I'm a psychology researcher. So if I'm say, for example, I'm taking some concept from Bhagavad Gita and applying it to solve some sort of problem in the mental health challenges. Also, it is like I'm testing scientifically with all the data and everything. This concept or idea, can it be patented or is it eligible for any sort of patent?
You are asking a specific question. I'll answer it specifically as far as it fits the criteria of patentability. That is,
Mhm.
it is novel, it is inventive, has industrial applicability, it will fit. But besides that, you will have to understand whether it falls under the patentable subject matter. If you notice, there are certain things which are non-patentable subject matter under Section 3 of the Patents Act. So, first of all, an idea is never patentable. So only an executed process or product that is what which is patentable. Okay. So if it is in such a form and it does not fall in the criteria of non-patentable subject matter, and it is under section 2J or 21J, which says that this is novel, inventive, or it is has industrial application, then I'm sure
Mhm.
you can patent the subject matter.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Namaste, Shilesha ji.
Namaste, ma'am. I'm Shilesha Sachindra. Ma'am, I want to know about oral tradition, whatever like manuscript mission, go to door all over India and try to preserve the manuscript. Like this mission, could I not, government of India should make a platform and go to whole India and preserve the oral tradition, cultural or whatever. Is this possible?
Yeah, so in a way that is being done actually. So like I mentioned about the People's Biodiversity Register, that is also a government initiative only. So that is through the Ministry of MOFCC. So that also is a way in which the government is actually connecting to the local population and collecting information that is of course specific, the biological resource and the associated traditional knowledge. But similarly, several government departments like Ministry of Ayush, like ICMR, many of them are also collecting information on healing practices and all those things. And several other things are also being done. And even if you see IKS as an organization, they are also providing funds for validation, research, so many other things. So in that, a level of awareness has been created. But when we are doing all these things, you have to remember that collecting information is one thing, but doing it ethically is another thing, and that is where it is important. Why we say that going everywhere and collecting, but if it is not being collected properly and if it is disseminated in the wrong manner, more than protecting, we would be doing a disservice to those people who are, the knowledge holders. So we'll have to keep that in mind when we are doing this in a big way, because then we will have to apply all the necessary principles and then only go ahead doing this kind of work.
Yes, ma'am. I understood what I want to say you. Actually, I belong from remote area of Kosi River. I have seen from my childhood lots of oral tradition practices by them. But nobody like agency is also a collect the art form, lots of art form. But I used to see them. They are practice each and every day, like cow milk worship and crop worship, different type river worship, and each and everyday life on the occasion of worship they would want to preserve, because in next to 5 or 10 years maybe they are deleted or they eliminated if we do not do. So
So,
we have give the some platform.
okay, I can connect you to someone, Shlesha ji. So if you connect, maybe write to me, I will give you the contact details of a person who you can probably speak to from one of those grassroots innovation foundation type of organizations, NGOs that work. Maybe I can give you, maybe they'll be able to tell you how to go about recording that information.
Oh, thank you,
You
ma'am.
can
I am
connect. All right?
thank you, sir, very much, ma'am.
All
Thank
right.
you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Then, uh, will it be right to say that IKS or TK is our soft power? Uh, from Dr. Mani, Dr. Maniji.
It'd be right to say, I suppose it'll be right to say it's a soft, whether it's only a soft power also is a question though. So I mean, it's perspective basically.
Yes. So yeah, when traditional literature like Ramayana, Mahabharata, or Purana, or literary works of great old poets are taken, is there anything related to copyright addressed under TK? I
No,
think.
so you're talking about Ramayana, Mahabharata, the text themselves. The texts don't have any copyright as on date. If you know that, you don't know. I mean, it's supposed to be written several thousands of years ago. But if you talk about commentaries, or if there is some kind of like there are several commentaries actually. Then in that case, if there is an author who is still alive or an author who has passed away less than 60 years ago, such a commentary will still have copyright subsisting. Even translations and even different ways of writing the same thing, like suppose it's a screenplay or some different way of putting that text matter. If that author is still there, then copyright will subsist. Okay, but on the original verses or on the original text, no, it doesn't subsist, so you can always work on it. So you just remember author plus 60 years. Author, I mean author's life plus 60 years. Copyright, after that, copyright will not exist.
Yes, I think there is no question.
So, Piyush ji, did we lose you? We're not able to hear you. Can someone answer on the chat box if Piyush ji is audible? Yeah, okay. We just wait for a few minutes. I'll just call him maybe. Yeah. Okay. So,
Ma'am, can you hear me?
yes, yes. Now we can. Now
Yes,
we can. Yes.
yes, yes. So pranam to all of you. So we request all of you, please go through all the PPTs and videos. All are uploaded in the Google Drive, which you have received. So enjoy your weekend with preparation for the final assessment. There you will have 40 MCQs. Uh, you have to complete 40 MCQs within 45 minutes. Mm, so, and you, as you know, you have to require 75% marks from that. So we request, please go through all the PPTs and recording. And pranam, madam, for
Thank you.
your sessions. So we'll meet on Monday at the same time, 3:30. Now we'll complete with Shanti Mantra once again. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Tu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Pranam, madam. See you.
Pranam to all.
Pranam. Okay.